Unfortunately, I'm seeing too many of my fellow bros sacrificing potential muscle gains because of bodybuilding research. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love bodybuilding science. I'm a graduate from human kinetics where I totally geeked out on exercise physiology, anatomy, biomechanics. I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. I absolutely freaking love it. But still, until I see improvements in how these studies are designed, controlled, and interpreted, you're not going to see me placing a whole lot of faith in them. And reinforcing this rationale is a recent study I just came across. It's a meta-analysis that takes a look at all the bodybuilding research to date, and they concluded that the closer you're training to true momentary muscular failure, the better your muscle gains are going to be. Now, this is in contrast to the previous meta-analysis, which interpreted all that data as being better for you to leave some reps in reserve as opposed to training to true momentary muscular failure. Now, what I find fascinating about this recent meta-analysis isn't so much the conclusion that training to true momentary muscular failure is better for muscle gains, it's how they expose the limitations of all the previous studies, including the previous meta-analysis. Now, the big findings there was taking a look at how they basically measured training to failure and reps in reserve. Now, some of the studies use the measurement of training to failure as a percentage of your rep speed. So once the first rep is going to be the fastest rep, and once it slows down to maybe like 20% of what you were able to push that weight upwards, say for the bench press there, they determine that as being true momentary muscular failure, when really you probably could have done more repetitions. Other studies use the subject's own interpretation of what training to failure is. So you determine, do you think that's it? Could you have done any more? And they're like, no, that's it. That's all I could do. And we know how we suck at gauging what true momentary muscular failure is. Research has shown that most of the time, it's 3, 4, maybe even more reps shy of what we could actually do. And I'm sure you know for yourself, all of us have been in the gym at times where we mentally tap out before our bodies ever do. We get to the point where we just can't handle it anymore. The discomfort, the pain, we're like, that's it, I'm done. Even though we could have pushed out a few more reps, our body had more in us. So the other thing is just research to date basically sucks. It really does suck when you take a look at the big picture there. A lot of times, even the subjects themselves that they use, oftentimes you'll see it's obese, sedentary seniors and nothing like us at all. You're not going to see really any studies out there of guys who have been lifting for 10, 15, 20 plus years, 30 plus years like myself, mainly because we're damn near our genetic potential. These studies would have to last a year, and even then, we're talking about an ounce difference that you might see between some different protocol there. So it's not really feasible, and it's really difficult for them to control all the variables in these studies. Really making sure that all of these subjects are being consistent with their nutrition intake, their calories, their macros, they're consistent with their sleep, they're consistent with their stress management. It's very difficult to control all of those factors. And in this study, this meta-analysis itself, they even expressed the limitations of this meta-analysis there, which is always fascinating because I see so many people, so many fitness influencers who will read the abstract of a study and take it as gospel. This is the approach. When it was determined that you should never train to failure, you should have some reps in reserve, that's the way it has to be. This is what the meta-analysis says. This is gospel. Even though the researchers in the paper say take it with a grain of salt. More research is needed. We have limitations with the studies and all previous studies there. And I really like how they were calling this meta-analysis kind of called for better protocol, better study design, how we can control things better to get more accurate data that we can base ourselves on. Now, also take into consideration, this study is yet to be peer reviewed. So it's going to be really fascinating to see the outcome of that, but even more fascinating to see how all the other fitness influencers out there are going to interpret this meta-analysis. Will they change their bias? Will it cause them pause to reflect on, well, maybe I should be training to failure here? Or will they hold steadfast to thinking that it is still best to leave a few reps in reserve? And there's no right or wrong answer there. Really, it comes down to where does that bias come from? We all have biases. This meta-analysis confirms my bias, which isn't based on research. It's based on my 30 plus years of lifting experience, where I have listened to the research. I looked at the research that did show that leaving some reps in reserve are best for muscle gain. So there's a few years where I followed that protocol, and comparing that to training to failure, I find it better for me to train to failure. Also, my workout partners, same boat. They've been training with same program as me, pushing it. We've been forcing out reps and everything for years. And we did that years they trained with me when we were leaving reps in reserve, and they prefer training to failure. Members of the Jacked After 40 Club have been following the exact same workout plan that I have for the past 7 years. I get to base my feedback, my interpretation on their results as well, how they are responding to the protocol. The people who follow my workout programs on the Lose Fat, Get Jacked website, all those programs, workouts that I have followed. So hearing their feedback, 20 plus years of coaching experience, hearing how my clients respond to training to failure. So I know some people don't do best training to failure, others do best training to failure. So you really got to determine where that bias comes from. Is it coming from you just basically regurgitating what your favorite fitness influencer said? They read the research and they said, that's it, you shouldn't be training to failure. So now all of a sudden you shouldn't be training to failure, even though you've been thriving for all these years of training to failure. I've seen some people like, they love it. They are pushing it hard. They love that grind. And then all of a sudden they're like, their favorite influencer says they shouldn't be training to failure. And they're like, man, I'm kind of feeling a little beat up here. Maybe I shouldn't be training to failure. I didn't hit a personal best this workout. My favorite fitness influencer says that's a sign I should be taking a deload week here. Like, you got to learn to listen to your own body. Take all the research that's out there, experiment with it with a heightened sense of awareness, and see how you truly respond best. So if you do find that you don't respond best to training to failure, you also got to determine, like, is it training to failure that is making it difficult for me to recover from my workouts? Or am I just sleeping like crap? Could I train to failure if I slept better, if I manage my stress better? So there's all these other factors that would come into play when it comes to training to failure and your recovery. And a lot of people will look at, well, man, I'm like sore for days after a workout when I train to failure. Well, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but we've been led to believe that that has been a bad thing in the past. So like, well, I want to train my muscles twice per week, but if I'm sore for like 3-4 days afterwards, I'm going to have a difficult time working that into my training schedule. I'm like, well, why do you need to train your muscle groups 2 times per week? Well, that's what the research said. Well, maybe 10 years ago, that was the thing, that training frequency was important, that the more you train a muscle, the better the muscle gains. But the most recent meta-analysis shows that it doesn't matter how many times per week you train a muscle group, as long as volume is equated. So like for myself personally, I know when I crush legs, when I have a leg workout where I'm taking every set to the point of true momentary muscular failure, I got to take about 5 days between leg workouts to fully recover. Again, nothing wrong with that. Again, hilarious to think back to the day like 10 years ago where people were bashing body part split routines because of the muscle soreness. It takes you a whole week to recover from your training sessions. Only like bodybuilders, pro bodybuilders who are on performance enhancing drugs should be training like that. Research shows that it's better to train more frequently. You shouldn't be needing that much break between sets. Well, again, the research now shows that that was wrong. So again, if you're relying on bodybuilding research and taking it to heart, like that is gospel, it's always changing. It's always contradicting each other. You're always going to find different things. So if you've been training all these years with reps in reserve and now you're like, holy smokes, like truly training to failure is the best, you could have been holding yourself back all that time. But again, what really comes down to is you listening to your body. And again, training to failure may have very little to do with why you're finding it so difficult to recover from your workouts. It may be your workout program design. Like I said, when I am absolutely crushing every set of a leg workout with multiple leg exercises in there, it takes me a good 5 days to fully recover. So if I was to schedule a second leg workout 2 or 3 days later, I wouldn't be fully recovered. It would beat me down. So I need to make sure I am structuring my workouts in a way when I am training to failure with multiple exercises, I need to schedule my leg workouts like 5 days apart. If you want to train your legs more frequently, or if I want to train my legs more frequently, I'm gonna have to make sure that I'm doing fewer sets per workout, fewer exercises, kind of spreading out that volume over multiple workouts throughout the week, knowing that okay, if I don't do as many sets, I'm going to be able to recover faster from it. So again, it's the total volume. You got to take in the whole big picture, the amount of work that you're doing while you are training to true momentary muscular failure. So take that whole picture into the decision-making process for you when you're designing your workout programs and how hard you're training yourself. And again, there's no general recommendation. It's not like you should be training to failure all the freaking time. Like I said, sleep can have a huge impact on whether or not you should be training to failure, and your stress management. So if you are struggling with your sleep right now, you are stressed with work and everything you got going on with your family life and everything, it may be best for you to not train to failure for a little while until things get a little bit under control. You're able to get yourself back into a good, consistent sleep routine where you're getting a quality amount of adequate sleep each and every night, and your stress is much more under control. Then you can push it. But again, even under those situations, you may still find it okay to train to true momentary muscular failure. And of course, there's some exercises where you're not going to train to true momentary muscular failure, such as the squat, the deadlift, but even still, you can train close, like one or two reps in reserve is still very, very close to true momentary muscular failure. So you still want to push those sets, but be very cautious with it. But for isolation exercises and for like machines and dumbbells even, it's very easy for you to take those to true momentary muscular failure. It's a big reason why I like to take my sets, like finishing off with a partial repetition, because to me, if I can only get part of the way up there, I know I hit true momentary muscular failure. That's my gauge of whether I did it or not. There's no doubt about it. I pushed it to the best of my abilities there. So taking all these factors into consideration, again, having your heightened sense awareness, this is really what it comes down to. Take the research with a grain of salt there. Just use it as a guiding post. Look at it and go, man, that's intriguing. Okay, for the past few years, I've been leaving some reps in reserve. Let's see how I handle pushing my sets to true momentary muscular failure. And again, take into consideration the structure of your workouts. If you find that you aren't recovering as well, maybe you have to do fewer exercises, fewer sets during those workouts in order to recover. That's like, I look at like big picture here, I have never pushed harder in the gym. Yeah, I'm doing fewer sets. So my total volume may look like it's less because on paper I'm doing fewer sets, fewer exercises, but I am getting way more effective reps from my training because I am training to true momentary muscular failure with just about every set. First set, I might leave one rep in reserve, but I am crushing every single set. So the beauty of that is that I get into the gym quicker. Mind you, I'm fully resting between sets. I'm making sure I'm allowing my body the time it needs to fully recover between sets so I can give the best of myself to that next set. I'm not looking at my stopwatch going, all right, 90 seconds is up, I got to get at it. No, it's like when I'm ready, when I feel ready to give the best of myself to the next set, then I'm going to get at it. So there's so many different factors that come into play. So I don't want, the big message that I want you to take home from today's video is just to take that research with a grain of salt, experiment with it, but with a heightened sense of awareness. Kind of try to block out any biases that you may have or what anyone else says. Just pay attention to how your own body is responding and manipulating certain variables like the training frequency and how many exercises you're doing. Because again, like if you are taking each hit to true momentary muscular failure, you're not going to be able to hit like 3-4 exercises per body part for some body parts. It's going to be less than that. But again, that's going to be quality, effective sets that you're going to really produce an incredible stimulus that's going to spark that growth response. And again, research may come out. Again, this is just one meta-analysis here. We need more studies. We need better studies to really determine what is best for us. So hope you appreciate today's message. I would really love to hear your thoughts and feedback on this subject. So please take a moment to drop a comment down below to share your thoughts, share your feedback, share your own personal experiences. If you enjoyed today's video, please do me a huge favor and smash that thumbs up button. It would really mean a lot to me. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that alert button so you're notified each time I upload a video. If you know a fellow bro who would benefit from hearing this message, please do me a favor and share it with them. But before we go, don't forget to download your free guide, Lose Fat, Get Jacked. Have yourself an amazing day. Catch you in the next video.